welcome everyone to my college. Today we'll be presenting you with some insight into the minds of an academic. How do they think? What are they looking for in their students? What's their perspective? So today we have a special guest with us, and that's Aditya Balasubramanian, who is the course convener of one of the compulsory courses required for PPE, and that's of course politics, philosophy, and economics. Hi Aditya, welcome to my college.
Hi Avneet, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be able to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. So Aditya, you lecture and are the convener of PPE Integration 3. Can you tell us a bit about the course and what's basically the gist of it?
Yeah, so PPE Integration 3 is one of 3 courses that students in the philosophy, politics, and economics degree take each through their time at the ANU. They take one a year. It's an integration course, which means that it tries to integrate the 3 fields that they study and bring them together. And for each year, that course is run by one of the different departments that convene PPE. So that is either philosophy or politics, which sit in CASS, and the 3rd year it's economics, which is in the College of Business and Economics. I'm actually convening even though I sit in CASS, I'm convening the economics course. Our course is titled Classical Literature in PPE for this year. In the future, it will be titled From Moral Philosophy to Political Economy to Economics, a history of economic thought. The way in which I'm teaching this course is as a history of economic ideas that shows how economics has evolved from a branch of moral philosophy into the sort of quasi-scientific discipline that it is today, and also sort of important pit stop in the 19th century when it was known as political economy. And quite a bit more enmeshed in politics in a disciplinary sense. So the course kind of starts with, it's sort of broadly chronological. It starts with the ancients. So we look at the Arthashastra from ancient India and Juan Con's discourses on iron and salt, as well as some ideas that Aristotle has. But fundamentally, it's a course about modern economic thinking, and its beginnings in a kind of response to both the Atlantic revolutions, political revolutions, and also the sort of industrial revolution. And even though it starts, with kind of a focus on Europe and European ideas, as we move along, we start to see how, economic thinking unfolds in other parts of the world, and how it's kind of responded to. So that's basically what the course is about. And it's heavily primary source driven, and so every week we ask students to read some portion of one of the sort of great texts in sort of economic thought.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. It seems like there's a lot going on in that course, and apart from it being a compulsory one for PPE students, what would you say to students who are watching this that might be thinking, why should I feel motivated to undertake it, or what should excite me?
I mean, I think there are a couple of things. I think that, within the PPE degree, there's not much of an opportunity to study things historically. I think that particularly the way that philosophy is practiced and taught, and political science, over the last 15, 20 years, history has kind of fallen off. This is an opportunity to sort of consider it from a different lens. So in that sense, it's a course that's very different from other things that students would be sort of exposed to. I think the other thing about the course that is kind of unique is that we have tutorials that are driven in some sense by student queries and student discussion. And it's something in which we, in the beginning, we are, my tutor Nabi and I are maybe more involved, but the intention is basically to step back and to sort of be first among equals, rather than people who are conveying material to the students.
That's great. And I confess I'm a criminology student, or I was a criminology student. So I very rarely took any economics or philosophy or politics courses. I think that's a really interesting way of teaching, that, you're getting the students to already start to think about questions that they have about the material. And I guess my question to you from that is, what are some of the common mistakes that you see in students that undertake this course and undertake the tutorials in your course?
Sure. So I just to clarify a bit, we do also have questions that I kind of ask people to have considered and go through in some of our breakout rooms and such. But I think what's happened is, as we're now in week 4, week 2 and week 3, people brought more questions. We spent a larger percentage of the time discussing questions that students had, and it became a little more kind of student driven. We still want to keep a kind of core of questions that, for the perspective of such bureaucratic things as learning outcomes and such.
Of course.
We tick those boxes. But
yes.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I think, common mistakes or concerns, there's a certain feeling about, I think, participation that students are, I guess, initially, who are not normally of type A personalities, perhaps, who are a bit reluctant. And I think, that's also made more challenging by the online forum. I think that, and it's a part of that, I think, sometimes stems from this feeling that, sometimes it is that students haven't done the reading, but it's also, I think it stems from a certain kind of diffidence about, whether or not what I say is going to be, appreciated or responded to, or if it's sophisticated enough. And I think that's a real shame, right? Because, how often do you have the opportunity as learners to be able to kind of essentially say what you like without it necessarily being judged or evaluated in ways in which it would be, for example, in a work context or in an oral examination context. One of the great ways in which I think students have used the course is they've sort of posed questions, about, like, for example, Malthus, his essay on principle of population, who is sort of makes a mistake in terms of thinking about the rate of growth of the food supply versus the rate of growth of population. But the idea about nature imposing limits to economic growth and the capacity that the natural world has to sustain human activity, that is something that is very much with us today, right? And so when students make those connections without me telling them to, and they bring those questions and other colleagues answer, I'm really quite delighted. I think that that's something that people should try out your wacky ideas and don't worry about what happens. And if you don't know, you can just, very, very happily say, look, I don't know. Or I cold called somebody last week and they said, look, I had grad interviews, I wasn't able to do the reading. I much prefer that to somebody, but somebody not being honest with me. That's the way to sort of take advantage of this opportunity is to sort of be creative,